Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it's an honor to join this debate on the both motions before us today. Madam Speaker, it is my intention to raise a few matters alluded to by the Honourable Minister of Finance in his introduction earlier this afternoon. But before I get to that, I was really taken aback somewhat that the last speaker opposite, when the member rose, the member indicated that it was not the member's time, the member was not carded to speak, and the member therefore chose to speak because somehow the member for Caroni Central aroused or titillate or excited the member to get on her feet and respond with a cameo appearance for 20 odd minutes or so. And that 20 minutes, Madam Speaker, I took my notes here, dealt with taxation measures, VAT, CNG stations, UNCs, lack of a proper administration, diversification, incentivizing the private sector, the IDB role in assisting the government to work with the private sector, the food import bill, the creative industries sector, and the maladministration, as the member said, of the last government. That was done in 20 minutes. Now, I am very curious to know who is the next speaker that was prepared to speak today. That 20 minutes was more valuable than the preparation of the next speaker on the government benches. Who would have spent time preparing, reading the motions and preparing a good argument to come before us, and in a cameo appearance of 20 minutes, plowed through all that material. And I agreed with the member. The member really was not carded to speak. And when the batting order changed, that cameo appearance gave us no runs. And the batsman left as the batsman entered. It would score the same point. Madam Speaker, such extemporean might be good elsewhere. But in a debate like this, one would have hoped that persons would be prepared and relating to the issue. But the member for Caroni Central, I imagine, can excite persons to respond. To his credit, he can do that. Madam Speaker, I will respond to some of those matters raised by the member for Aruka Maloney later. But first, to get back to the substantive issue of the motions before us, the Minister of Finance came to the House today and drew us out on a Monday and demand that we come here on a Monday because the time is upon him, and he would just have checked his calendar to realize that he was running out of days, and therefore the House must meet on Monday to deal with this matter. And the member made his case somewhat for support to both motions. Madam Speaker, like the member for Caroni Central, I was taken aback. The member told us that he has here today a twin objective: to make the burden equitable, and secondly, to save the environment and the earth. So the twin objectives, one environment and one socializing the burden almost, to use his argument, but could not tell us exactly how much revenue you can raise. Madam Speaker, in my constituency on Debe Junction, when a doubles man go out in the morning, he knows how much doubles he has. He knows by 12 o'clock if he sells X amount, he would get Y income. He knows at the end of the day, if he sells Y, he gets X. He will know for the entire day what is my revenue coming to me depending on how much Barra and Chana and doubles I sell. I want to put it to you, Madam Speaker, that a doubles man could run this country better than the member for Diego Martin. Because the member for Diego Martin Northeast cannot tell us what revenue, and you see the cameo appearance want to continue. You had 45 minutes to talk, you couldn't take it. I talking now, you want to talk while I talk. Madam Speaker, a nutsman goes out in the morning and he knows I have a bag of nuts here, I will check to see how much I sell by 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And he's very clear on how much money he will make. The Minister of Finance comes to the house, increases tax, but cannot tell us how much money he's expecting to make. The nuts man would make a better Minister of Finance than the member for Diego Martin Northeast. And the member for Diego Martin Northeast advertised in the newspaper, and I have an article here that came to us earlier, where in anticipation of this debate, the Trinidad Guardian, Monday, April 25th, I believe today, bold headline, IMF to announce tax waiver details today on luxury cars. And high anticipation that today we will get a good analysis of what waivers are coming, how, why, to who. But so far, the Minister of Finance did not tell us anything about these waivers. Where? How? What is the policy? What is the procedure? Who will benefit? Who will not benefit? Why? Because the member for Caroni Central again made the point. This is economic policy by VAPs. So you announce online tax, and then when you realize you didn't think it through, you say, hold on, I think we'll have to exempt certain goods online. You announce VAT reduction, and when you work it through, you say, no, I think we have to change the schedules somewhat. You announce, and we have the announcement here, Madam Speaker, in the mid-year review. I just want to quote from the mid-year review. It was on the 8th of April 2016. And the Minister of Finance told us, he says, Madam Speaker, in order to raise the revenue to deal with all these matters in the Finance Committee report, I'm at page 20, to deal with all of the goods and services and other items of expenditure, we intend to increase by 50% custom duties, motor vehicle tax on luxury vehicles, starting with private motor vehicles with an engine size exceeding 1999 cc. Cubic capacity of the engine size, cc. And he blurted out, this measure will take effect immediately. That was on the 8th of April. Then today, a few days after, the Minister of Finance indicated that we will have a waiver because people didn't adjust the suddenness of that policy.
What happened to the used car dealers?
No, yeah, the used car dealers. Nobody adjusted the suddenness. But this is a government for 7 months telling us that they're consulting everybody. At every turn, at every street corner, we're consulting.
They have a manifesto.
But the people who are to be affected, the Minister of Finance says they were taken by the suddenness. So they didn't know because you did not consult, you did not inform, never engaged. And we have tax waiver details. But what are the details? We don't know. So we have several companies in the country, some of us know them. I mean, is it Sterling Services? Sterling Services, Diamond Motors, Massey, importing new cars. And Samaka. Now, where is this list coming from? How is this to work? Are you saying that the companies will give the Ministry of Finance and the Minister a list and say, boss, these 20 people apply last week for the pay down on vehicles and we are importing? Because that is a process. Persons will pay a certain percentage of the cost. It goes to the dealer. They make a request to import. It takes a few months. It will come down here on the bond, as he quite rightly said. That will take some time as well. Go into the showroom. That will take some time. But how much time? How is this to be fixed? Are you dependent on the company to give you a list of all those persons who have ordered motor vehicles, luxury cars, over 1999 cc? And who are they?
Yes.
Who are they? And how can you put a policy in place where the dealer will just inform the Ministry of Finance? They could put in John Smith, Jane Smith, anybody. So what happens in a system like this where you don't think it out is that it is open for corruption. It is open for misuse. So the company says they abuse that system.
Yes.
So they can now call up people, their friends and family, and special clients and financiers and say, boss, this thing coming, go down quick and order your car. And when they go to order, they backdate that by a few weeks, and say, look, my name down there, you know. My name down there. We ordered, and they supply a list to the Ministry of Finance to get exempted from the 50%. Because how else could you do it?
Any former minister.
And today I would ask the minister, is he aware of any former minister in the PNM administration or any minister in the current administration who have also ordered brand new luxury motor vehicles that will benefit from this waiver? And tell us. If you don't tell us, I will tell us. I will tell us. Madam Speaker, because it's one thing to say ministers can purchase. This doesn't affect ministers, we know. They can purchase without paying motor vehicle tax, custom duties, VAT and so on. They know that. They purchase every 2 years, I believe, a vehicle. And nothing is wrong with that. That is the perk of the office, I always say. The former member for San Fernando East had it right. That is the perk for the office. Although I think they took a decision now not to avail themselves of that, but that's their issue. After they buy it, they said we're not availing ourselves. Then they discover that ministers already ordered. Because what you do is you order not for yourself, but for friend, family, spouse, partner, spouse and partner. And you order, vehicles are there. What is the policy surrounding the waiver of taxes on motor vehicles already ordered? Our information is that, what is that?
Attorney General, in terms of what statement?
Madam Speaker, 48.6 in respect of the statements that he's making about ordering vehicles for some untoward purpose. It is by far past the tone. It is delving into some degree of impropriety by tone, by context, and by content.
Member for Oropouche East, in terms of the statement, I would say by actual expression of words, unless you have facts to back that up, I'd ask you to withdraw that.
Madam Speaker, I am merely asking a question. I have never made a statement.
Member, member, in terms of the context itself and your tone did not connote a question. So I'd ask you, there is a tone for a question for all those who don't know, but please withdraw that statement.
Speaker, could I change my tone? Could I, Madam Speaker, could I humbly and gently ask the member opposite if they are aware of other members and ministers who may have ordered luxury motor vehicles?
Madam Speaker, on a point of general privilege under Section 55. And I'm standing on a point of order. Yes, Madam Speaker. Most respectfully, for a past leader of government business in this House, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, just to raise the point.
Members, continue, Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, under 48.6, not only is this device a ruse to circumvent your direct ruling, but I take serious affront. If the member has something to say that is factual, I have no complaint. But one must have the courage to say what one wants to say, not to speak in circles this way and then to flout the chair's ruling, Madam Speaker.
Member for Caroni East. Member for Caroni East. Member for Diego Martin Northeast. Member for Oropouche East. I would direct that you withdraw the question and please continue. You must first withdraw it.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw.
Thank you.
Methinks the member protested too much. Could I proceed?
Well, member, please. For all members here, when the chair rules, I would rather not hear any comment based on my ruling. Please continue.
Speaker, but I would never speak
on 48.6 on the record of this Parliament. I am saying, if the member has something to say, then have the courage to say it openly. But to say about protests, Madam Speaker, it is insulting within the parameters of 48.6.
Attorney General, the member has already withdrawn the statement. Excuse me, members. Members, everybody in here is bound by the standing orders. Your behavior is beneath the decorum required of this House, and that would be tolerated by this House. This might be a very stimulating debate, but everybody would have the opportunity to speak in accordance with the standing orders. I rule that a member of Oropouche East withdraws his statement. I take it he has. And I also, for the guidance of all members here, in future, when the chair rules, I really don't want what in local parlance is called the echo. Continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On this matter of climate change, is okay? Yeah. On the climate change issue, the member for the Gomartin Northeastern Minister gave us some information because he was seeking to clarify some matters. And given that one of the objectives of this bill is, of course, to deal with matters of energy and fossil fuel reduction and so on, and demand, the Minister of Finance sought to correct the record somewhat, he believed, concerning the signing of the global instrument on climate change and Trinidad and Tobago's participation in that. I am sure the member for Diego Martin Northeast, I know him to be a very honourable man, I am sure it was never his intention to mislead the Parliament nor the country. When the member, Minister of Finance, indicated that Senator the Honourable Moses attended and signed the international instrument in Paris in December.
I never said that. I never said that.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy for the clarification from the member, so I can proceed. For the record, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and something else I think he's called, signed the instrument in New York quite recently. But I can't hear myself. Member, I would like to indicate that in December 2015, when this matter was being discussed and signed on to in Paris, Trinidad and Tobago had 3 delegates, of which there were no minister or head of government. The Prime Minister of India was there, the President of the United States were there, about 5 Prime Ministers and the CARICOM were there. There was no Prime Minister from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago had other more important matters to deal with. I think he was in London attending a party fundraiser, but he was not in Paris. Not in Paris, where other heads of government were to show their commitment to this global climate change instrument. And Trinidad and Tobago had 3 delegates. The only other country with such a low turnout, I believe, was war-torn Syria. The only other country. So the government's commitment to the environment must be measured. Because they signed a couple of days ago. Apart from that, Madam Speaker, they made a big thing of environment. Those CARICOM nations signed in December already ratified into law the treaty. Trinidad and Tobago, as of this moment, has not ratified the instrument. So when you speak and boast about your commitment to the environment, when we were in office, there was a ministry charged with the environment.
They disbanded that ministry.
They disbanded it. It is subsumed within, I think, 2 or 3 different ministries now.
Yes.
So you're not sure where one agency is as opposed to the other, all under the environment.
That's what we call in public utility.
And Madam Speaker, I am also informed, Madam Speaker, that Grenada, which remember boast about in terms of their car, how they purchase car and so on, was one of those countries attending and signing and already ratifying into law. And they deposit their instruments and they deposit their again, Madam Speaker, please, when they have a chance to talk, they don't talk. When somebody else talking, you're interrupting. Madam Speaker, and they say that is their view. Madam Speaker, So, on the matter of the environment and commitment of the government of Trinidad and Tobago to climate change and other ideals, this government stands wanting. That's my point. I move now to the next point. To be very clear, Madam Speaker, I am informed that during the period 1995 to 2000, the then UNC administration opened the CNG stations, including those at Rushwood Street, San Fernando, Coquille Village, Peak, Staccagreva, Ramco, Churchill, Roosevelt Highway, and at City Gate. Prior to that, I am informed that we had one station open before at Sumsum Hill. Whether that was functioning or not, Madam Speaker, I am not too sure about that. But it is not today, to get into, I use a lighter word, to get into a shouting match as to who did more for the environment and who do less and so on. Governments build upon what other governments did. When we came in 2010, there was one. We built upon that and introduced 6 to 8 stations. And today we'll be happy if the current administration introduced 20 stations. Nothing is wrong with that. But it's not a shouting match to say who did this, who did that. And the member for Caroni Central, quite rightly, outlined a lot of the issues, a lot of the challenges we face and the achievements as far as it relates to the matter of the environment and what we were doing there. The Minister of Finance told us earlier that part of the approach was to spread the burden of adjustment in the society. There's an interesting angle here, Madam Speaker, that I want to raise. In the context of an economy where we are all aware of job loss, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have in this country now what is called economic suicides. Persons are killing themselves over their inability to provide for their family. Regrettably, we read in the newspaper, on the death of David Francis, who hung himself.
Perseverance and
a retrenched worker at the Centrin steel plant, I believe. Yeah. And the person took his own life over matters relating to inability to provide for the family. That's the context in which we live. Mr. Francis was not the first. I pray he would be the last, but I doubt it. Because the economic situation is so grave. And in that context, we have had job losses. None other than the Minister of Labour came to the House. And one day sat in this House, the Minister of Labour, came from the other place, and rattled out, almost like calling the lotto numbers, the amount of people who were retrenched. I think the tally is today officially 5,000. It could be more like 8,000, 10,000 persons who have left, who have lost their jobs. So we have wanton job loss in the economy.
And a 10-point
but,
plan.
Madam Speaker, during economic recessions as well, do you know there are also job-creating sectors? And the last time we went through this type of painful transition, it was earlier in the first decade of this century. It gave rise to what is called the private security industry. When crime became rampant and so on, the private security industry emerged. Today that industry employs over 10,000 citizens. Well, some, I think, non-citizens as well. Private security industry. But, Madam Speaker, you may call that low wage, low skill, hard employment, because we know it's a difficult sector, that, unregulated still. But that sector came out of economic difficulties and criminal enterprises expanding, I think, in the early part of 2002, 2009, and so on. Madam Speaker, today there's a next sector developing, and it has developed fully in terms of the used car industry, and even with luxury vehicles too. There is a particular subsector developing of technicians, garages, car wash in this country that treats with luxury vehicles. Colleagues opposite, I know many of them, would enjoy their Benz and BMW, and I understand a Porsche as well was parked up in the airport for some time. Oh yes, foreign used Jaguar as well. And Madam Speaker, the point I'm making is that an industry is creeping up where there are persons who are fixing cars, doing the IT. Today, Madam Speaker, if something goes wrong with one of these luxury vehicles, the computer challenge, the IT challenge, is bigger than the database managing in a ministry. Because if one thing go wrong with a car and the IT systems there, everything goes down. And today, diagnostic, in fact, they use words like diagnostic now to fix car. Madam Speaker, there's an industry developing of mechanics, of technicians at one level, but also of car wash that handle these vehicles. And the member for San Fernando East would be aware, as he should, that even in Monreport and Coquier, you have, and Current, I think, you have car wash there that hires a lot of people. And I'm sure you are a regular customer there as well. You know, or they don't fix that? Madam Speaker, those subsectors, if you don't watch how you go about, you make policy by VAPs, you can affect those subsectors where people will even lose their jobs there because you don't have demand, people are not purchasing. And this government approach to economic management is to pelt darts in the dark and hope you hit a bullseye. Just fling that. That's the approach to economic management. So we were bewildered when the Prime Minister announced his economic council, the finest minds in the country. They came to and then he said, the Prime Minister said in the House, I think with great sincerity, he said, so long as I'm the leader of this country, I will do all in my power to avoid the IMF. And then the Minister of Finance come back in a plane with the IMF. And the World Bank. As if that. So today, we have subcontracted the management of Trinidad and Tobago to the IMF and the World Bank. They are in charge. And their approach, Madam Speaker, I have an article here. The Guardian of April 23, Saturday gone. And this has to do as well with the diversification issues which the member for Aruka Maloney spoke about, which I'll come to later. When, Madam Speaker, none other than retired Professor Dr. Ralph Henry, former PNM Minister Mariano Brown, indicated no need for outside help. Madam Speaker, Professor Henry himself indicated in this article that not Lester Henry.
Oh, he's not Professor.
Dr. Ralph Henry indicated, Madam Speaker, that we have a lot of our own good advice. We have solid people who can make policy prescriptions on this board, Economic Advisory Council. You have Mr. Terence Farrell, Dr. Ralph Balgobin, Professor this, Professor that. Just today they announced 2 new members, Dr. Keith Nurse and I think somebody else. So that you are filling up this Economic Council and the IMF take over the show. Resident in Trinidad and Tobago to assist. Mariano Brown stated, Madam Speaker, a former PNM minister, I believe he is. He said he was bemused and amused that government was going back to the IMF and World Bank when we said we did not want to go there. He says the minister, meaning the Minister of Finance, is trying to validate that what they are doing is right. He's also signaling that the ministry does not have the relevant technical expertise. That is what they're doing. The IMF could not, Mr. Brown said that the intention is to raid the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. That is the intention. And to have the IMF validate their policy objectives of raiding the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And today I ask the minister, who is so concerned about this issue of sharing the burden and ensuring that we reduce our dependence on fossil fuel as part of a development strategy that will take us into renewable energy. I am asking the minister, what is the role of the IMF and World Bank vis-a-vis the Economic Advisory Council? Are they to meet? Are they to share ideas? Will they work together? And who asks for this? Did the minister consult this all-important Economic Advisory Council before walking on the plane back? Because that is how it happened. The IMF and the minister came down, I think, with 2 of them holding the same boarding pass. When they boarded the plane, they had their boarding passes together coming to Port of Spain. And this is a betrayal of those persons who supported that administration.
What about the advisors to the minister? What they have to say on this?
And Madam Speaker,
Member for Vancouver South, do you intend to raise an interruption? Well, please confine your comments so that it don't reach to the chair. Member for Vancouver South. I am guided. Thank you.
Madam
Continue.
Speaker, so we have the experts here saying no need for outside help. And we will file the appropriate question to ask the Minister. Who is paying for these IMF officials in Trinidad and Tobago? Who's paying? The government is paying. So now we have no money to keep workers.
Honourable Member, your 30 minutes have expired. You're entitled to 15 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you intend
Yes,
to seek my leave?
I see.
You may continue.
Thank you very much. So, Madam Speaker, the government is paying for the IMF advisors in the country today. They're paying for them to be here, while they're also paying for National Economic Advisory Council members, the membership of which they are increasing every day. Now we are being told by the member for Arouca Maloney that they're very clear they want to embark upon a rapid development and diversification strategy. The IDB will now help with that. So what is the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago doing? What is the government of Trinidad and Tobago doing if you subcontract to the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB? And Madam Speaker, having spent 5 years liming in opposition, they come into government without a plan, without a clue as to how to develop Trinidad and Tobago. They told the country that they had a plan. But what was that plan? To go to the IMF? And a writer said it today. I don't have time to quote extensively. But I think it was actually a member of the Economic Advisory Council, one David Abdullah, former senator, now is crying blood. Having helped to put the PNM in office, he's now saying today, this David Abdullah, that the IMF has a set prescription: retrenchment, privatization, selling out national assets, foreign exchange, changing the foreign exchange, the value of the currency. And today, the member comes to the parliament and tells us, listen, we want to share the burden, but did not even consult with the Economic Advisory Council, of which Mr. Abdullah is a member. He's still a member, so far. And because this is the article, it is in the Newsday, Madam Speaker, of today, page 9. Abdullah says Imbut not sure of what he's doing. Now we knew this.
Read it into the record. Just for the record.
For the record, we knew this in September 2015.
Before.
Mr. Abdullah wake up this morning and discovered that. And then the governor, former governor of the central bank, who they threw out from a window at the financial complex, is now saying that is an OJT Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I want to ask the Minister of Finance in relation to this measure. Was the measure again?
Member, I would ask you, in terms of that last statement, to find another way to say it. I'm sure.
Madam Speaker, I'm just inquiring kindly from the Attorney General if there was some bug on the seat that was provoking him at regular intervals to rise like this. Madam Speaker, could I continue? Oh.
Member for Oropouche East, in terms of the statement that I'd ask you to address and therefore find a better way to say it, dealt with the central bank. So if you can correct that, and also if you could withdraw that last comment, please.
I withdraw the last comment and I move on. Madam Speaker, the member for Arouca Maloney, the speaker that was not carded to speak, raised several matters which I'll just touch on briefly, and was somewhat provoked by the member for Caroni Central, who regularly reminds us that the opposite side is without a plan and so on, and I think that is also
rightfully so.
Rightfully, that is his refrain. Madam Speaker, the member took a few minutes to speak about plans and incentivizing the private sector and so on. And today, I can use the word hypocrisy, not hypocrite. Today, the hypocrisy is coming out. When ArcelorMittal asked the government to meet to discuss what they were going to do, they had no time to meet Mittal. And they had no time to meet Mittal, but today speaks about incentivizing the private sector to save jobs. Could you imagine that? When a major multinational was going to pull out to lead to 650 job loss and said, let us meet to discuss our plans, what we are doing, maybe then you could have met with the Metal Group to speak about incentives to see what you can do as a government. Had we been in office, 650 steel workers would be at their jobs today. I say that categorically and without apology.
Yes.
I say that without apology. Had the partnership government been in power today, 650 workers at Metal would have been at work. And Centrid, the member for Siparia, would have met or sent a ministerial team to meet that company to discuss with them how we can save jobs. We did it before when we were in office. There were companies that were also finding hard times. Their idea of incentivizing the private sector is Grand Bay.
Yes.
Is Grand Bay asking the Export Bank to
50 million US.
to what? Guarantee a loan. The Import-Export Bank gives demand loans. Today they are not giving demand loans, they are guaranteeing a loan. If that company cannot pay back, its taxpayers will pay that. Madam Speaker, today they have no authority to speak on diversification. When we were there, the hospital projects, capital investment projects, were meant to expand our capacity to earn foreign exchange in health tourism. Was meant to expand our ability to attract persons to come to Trinidad and Tobago for healthcare. This is why we made a massive infrastructure investment, training nurses and doctors. For the Minister of Health to tell the country, I don't have staff, what do you want me to do? That is not satisfactory. You cannot do that. And cannot tell us when we will open the Children's Hospital. Cannot tell us, the Minister of Education now telling us, we have some problem with the Penal Debe campus. And cannot tell us, what are you doing about, first, what is your problem? What are you doing with it? That was also meant as an area for diversification. The tertiary education sector is a job-creating sector. When people get jobs, they pay taxes. And when they pay taxes, government earn revenue. It's a simple explanation.
Everything is a problem.
This is it. After 7 months, they come to the table and tell us everything is a problem. And I want to tell my friend from San Fernando East, house is not snow cone, they don't melt. The partnership build houses. We built thousands of houses in San Fernando, Shabuanas, Princess Town. We built houses. The house is not snow cone, it doesn't melt. You know, and I think they banned themselves from using helicopter. But if you do an aerial tour, you will see the massive investment in housing in Central and in South Trinidad. And so after 7 months, you have not built anything. You proudly smiling, giving out keys for houses that we fixed or built. You understand? What are they doing after 7 months? Madam Speaker, they're drinking champagne in Lavantil. I see my friend for Lavantil West popping bottles in Lavantil, drinking champagne. Saw the Prime Minister pouring for someone, he looked like a butler. Madam Speaker, that is what they're doing while we are talking about diversification. That is when we are talking about diversification. And Madam Speaker, this matter before us, Madam Speaker, speaks to this issue of not understanding a sector. Because we don't know how much revenue we are raising from this measure. Why 50% and not 75%? Why 50% and not 25%? Because we don't know how much revenue you get. So it's not revenue, but that defeats your first objective, because then you're not sharing the burden at all. If you don't know how much revenue you are going to raise from this, you cannot argue that you are sharing the burden because you don't know the burden. Then you come to say, well, this will help with environment and so on. And you carry that type of argument. But in the used car sector as well, they have increased the cost of gasoline, of diesel. They are now coming to say they will build CNG plants and things all over the country. And they will go into non-fossil fuel energy and so on. And so far, after 7 months, nothing has happened. It is just talk and talk and talk. And we are seeing the business community in this country is seeing no sign. No solution. And Madam Speaker, this matter of the engine size and cars and so on, everyone knows that if you go beyond 1999 cc, of course, you go into generally luxury vehicle, but not always luxury vehicle. The minister have indicated that there are some bars there to protect farmers and public transport vehicles and so on. When you come down, you get into the cheaper engine size and cheaper cars and so on with less power. And Madam Speaker, the government has no strategic policy in dealing with the car industry. None. Today it will be 50%. When they go along, it might be 75% by September.
Yeah.
As they go along further, Madam Speaker, they will come back with other taxes. It is a question of tax, tax, tax. The Minister of Finance speaks about Prado vehicle and so on. And I asked him, which minister in this government driving a Prado? Which one? Because that's not the car of choice, I'm sure, for my colleagues opposite. But the minister didn't tell us another interesting point which we can raise on this matter. Is this measure designed as well to save foreign exchange? Is it a matter aimed at reducing the demand for foreign exchange? Because the foreign exchange issue is a troubling issue. Firing the governor of the central bank didn't change anything.
Yes.
Didn't change anything, as they thought it would. So that is a problem as well. Is this measure intended to save foreign exchange? And if so, how? And how much you intend to save by doing this? Madam Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, the member for Caroni Central spoke in great detail about the achievements of the former administration as it related to the environment. So I don't want to go on to that anymore. But the member for Aruka Maloney spoke about the government's great policy decision of reducing VAT from 15% to 12.5%. I don't know of any lobby group in this country that came in the public and say, we demand that you reduce VAT from 15% to 12.5%. They did that as a populist measure that I think they put on the platform. When they realized that they lower VAT to 12.5% and will lose revenue, they then increase taxes and everything. So you gave with one hand and took away with the next hand. It's a smart man. Madam Speaker, they do that in Las Vegas. That is, you do that on a gambling table. Madam Speaker, you give with one hand, you take away with the next hand. So you never win. The House always wins. This is a case where the Minister of Finance is the House. He wants to win with everything he does. So reducing the VAT meant nothing, Madam Speaker, because you increase the cost of living by the plethora of taxes you have placed on the population. And then today, again, this policy, I think Minister Caroni Central dealt with it, shifting blame. Everybody is to blame except the government. So you lower the VAT, you say, listen, we did what we have to do. The fact that the consumer not benefiting, that is not our fault. But you have a regulatory role, a monitoring role. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, through Consumer Division, Legal Affairs and so on, can monitor, can regulate, can ensure that an institution is in place to ensure that supermarkets passed on any benefit at all to the consumer. You cannot come to the parliament and tell the country, well, we did our role, we wash our hands, we lower VAT. No, no, no. You must ensure that the consumer, where the consumer can benefit, does benefit. That is also government's role. That is also policy and program required. And today, they are washing their hands on that matter, Madam Speaker. Yeah, Madam Speaker, I believe I have a couple of minutes left. The member spoke as well of the food import bill and creative sector and so on, and all of that is fine. All that sounds good. But what tangibles are you going to give to incentivize that sector? The creative sector receives support by governments over the years. It is wrong to think that only one government meet and treat with that sector. Several governments have given support. And in fact, another job-creating sector is particularly in the creative industries and to a lesser extent the entertainment sector. Because coming out of the problem we face now is really to identify which are the new sectors for job growth. We know where we're not going to get jobs. We're not going to get jobs in the steel mill. We're not going to get jobs in the government central bureaucracy. Or the removing contract workers. Listen, in this country, whether you're governor of the central bank or you are sanitation workers in San Fernando, you lost your job.
And they're arresting.
And they arrest the union leader, I think, down in San Fernando as well.
Yes.
So from governor, the central bank, to sanitation workers in San Fernando, all gone. The government need to tell us which are the job-creating sectors you are targeting and how you are going to do that. And in this measure, this one measure, you run the risk of affecting a certain subsector that could lead to further unemployment and job loss and loss of income. And, Madam Speaker, the people who are involved in these sectors and so on, if you leave them without jobs, you leave them without income, because you want to cut CPEP and cut URP and cut this and cut that, you are going to, I want to say, I can't say that. You are going to lead to more economic suicide, and you are also going to lead to more poverty.
Your speaking time.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Member for Laventille West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity accorded to me